Hello, hello, African family. Um, I was just thinking, as I was looking at the geopolitical condition, especially in Africa. Yay, the situation in Kenya, it was so sad what was happening there. It's so sad that our leaders are so detached from the reality of the people on the ground that it takes people's lives being lost for them to come back down to earth. I mean, the president of Kenya, just for him to come back and make some sensible proposals, people had to die. They didn't die for some progressive policies or anything like that. No, just for him to, come back to some sense of touch with reality. So, hey, you know, that is the reality. And this makes me reflect a lot on the kind of leaders that we have. I know this is something that it's a point that has been hammered home, but I'm starting to develop a line of thinking where I'm thinking, you know what, maybe the questions around the forms of governance that we have in Africa are quite legitimate. Even the questions around legal systems and all of that, because it seems this is where we are trapped because I'm starting to develop this thinking that if you think about it, actually, politicians, African politicians in the modern sense, are simply the children of their predecessors, which were the colonial administrations. In other words, they just replaced those who were sitting in the colonial administrations. And the people were hoping that these people are then going to do things differently from the colonial administrations. But you forget that you're putting people there with their own interests, and with them being having secured their own personal interests, then they have to, trade off something. And those trade offs often have to do with maintaining the status quo. So, I look at politicians in any sense as, in some sense, colonial mercenaries, power brokers of sorts, not leaders per se. You understand? They're power brokers. And the problem with them is that they also don't necessarily have strong loyalties to a bloodline or a nationality. You understand? Because at least with a king, if you said you're coming into a king's territory, that king at least has loyalty to, first of all, his family, the royal bloodline he comes from, but then also loyalty to his people, whom he shares interests with. You understand? And the condition of the kings now, which is quite compromised, has to a lot to do with that now because some kings have also become, in some sense, power brokers and no longer really represent the national interests of their particular bloodline that they represent. You understand? So, in many ways, sort of the post colonial social political structure, it's very problematic for many reasons. You know, there are dislocations and disconnects in many ways. And this is just a thought I'm developing that, hey man, we need to explore this thing also in the context of thinking about interests and loyalty and so on. I mean, how can you get a politician to really be loyal to people when he can just be loyal to more powerful interests? You understand? It just doesn't make sense because, the only reason that the bill in Kenya ended up being mitigated, it is not because the people stood up. It is because now obviously the government was not looking good. Yes, the people stood up, but the response is not because the people stood up. If they could have squashed, that insurrection and gotten away with it, they would have done that. But it's because, these days you can't hide anything. And now questions have been raised internationally about the government. So that looking bad in the public eye is the problem. It's not that they believe that what they are doing is wrong, you know, and that's the problem, you know. That's the problem with these colonial mercenaries, power brokers. They ain't loyal, man, and they can't be loyal. How can they be? What are they going to be loyal to? So just yeah, just a few thoughts. I thought I would talk less than this, but yo, this is just a hectic concept, yo.